Hi everybody, Garrett Monroe here, and in this video we're going to talk about a brief introduction on what is design thinking. There's many ways of approaching and thinking about and doing design thinking. It's inherently an interdisciplinary process. But this approach that we're talking about today is directly from a book called Designing for Growth. You'll have access to that PDF. We'll be taking snippets of it throughout the course. So this is one particular way. This is out of Columbia Business School Press, where a few experts in the field kind of set about to talk about what is design thinking. And when asked, Tim Brennan from Apple's Creative Services Group actually drew an image when he was asked what is design thinking. It's this image here of the question mark, having a problem. And then how do you make that work, essentially? How do you make it functional? How do you turn it? For them in Apple, it's how do you turn it into money? And what the design thinking is all this business in the middle. It's sort of taking all these components in together. How do you get from a real complex problem to a real functional, effective outcome? What does that look like? And another way, using text or words, is here from our textbook, an iterative and systemic approach to solving problems that focuses on customers and stakeholders. So solving problems by direct engagement with customers, the users, or the people who engage with it, or the stakeholders of a problem. So that's we're going to talk about how that's a little bit different from maybe some traditional ways in which we solve problems. By way of diving into this, we've offered these two visuals, two different bridges. They both have the same function, spanning a bay, or spanning or crossing water, connecting two land masses, offering transport for cars. But when we think about the Golden Gate Bridge here in the upper left, it gives us a very different feeling than when we look at the San Francisco Bay Bridge. In fact, they're both in the same area, and again, they're both allowing cars to pass over water, but they're very, very different in how they make us feel. One has become kind of a cultural icon. And I want to invite you just to pause for a minute the video and reflect on what you think the difference is between these two structures. Why is what are they? How are they different? Are they different? And where does that difference come from? And just take some notes, perhaps, and we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to jot down a few notes, reflect a little bit from your own intuition and analysis, your own feeling about what makes these bridges different. You maybe have written that, maybe the photo quality here is a little different. Certainly the color palette's different in the upper left, and the structure itself is more elegant, more simple. It inspires, a feeling. I don't know if anybody's ever actually crossed the bridge, but it feels like you're participating in something bigger, maybe because it's become such a cultural icon. And in the bottom right, maybe this sort of feels a little intimidating, a little even kind of banal or scary, crossing the sort of mess of concrete and steel without much color or feeling, just sort of like another part of my commute. A lot of this has to come down to the design and how these aspects were, how these structures were brought together, and thus how they make us feel. And so this is really what we wanted. This is really one of the central questions: is how do we focus and capture feeling in solving complex problems? It's a great tool. It's one of the central lessons of design thinking. Here's another quote from Greg Buchanan from the Carnegie Mellon School of Design. Great design occurs at the intersection of constraint, contingency, and possibility. So design doesn't simply come out of some genius or artistic or innovative mind without any influence or environment. In fact, it really is having a constraint, like understanding the limits of an environment, having certain boundaries, having a budget, having a timeline, having to meet certain stakeholder needs, which creates effective and kind of warming and functional and meaningful design. And so, by way of an example, I want to talk about falling water for a minute. Falling Water is a house built in 1935. Maybe you visited it. It's built by the great American architect Frank Lloyd Wright, and it's actually only a few hours from Hiram campus. It's in Western PA, and you can visit it. We've done a couple treks there. You could do a day trip out of it, just driving out to Falling Water, and you could visit this house. The beautiful thing about Falling Water, what people love about it, is it's this home built on top, more or less, of a river on top of a waterfall. And a wealthy family, this was a place they vacationed, the Kaufman family, and they wanted to build a home here, right on top of their favorite place. So they hired this kind of rogue, not well known at the time, academic architect, Frank Lloyd Wright, to design this space. And he had to use really new construction techniques at the time. The concrete cantilever here, rebar reinforced concrete slabs to kind of mimic the space and to put without actually harming the environment right over top the waterfall. He pulled stone here from the local environment, and he really tried to bring nature in all elements, in every room with big windows and so forth, to really become a part of the scene. And so it was through this really difficult environmental constraint that Frank Lloyd Wright created what's been called one of the greatest houses ever built, certainly one of the greatest houses or pieces of architecture in America. And so it speaks for itself when you go and visit it. The picture doesn't really do it justice, but here indeed is great design, and here it emerges out of constraint. And also, by the way, great harmony with the natural environment, certainly something we're interested in today. And so a few principles of design thinking. We want to seek to those with whom we serve. How can we connect with the people that our product or our service is offering value to? And by better connecting with the people we're serving, that our product or service offers something to, we can design it better for them. Instead of having this great distance, we want to better connect with them to do better design. We want to see those problems that emerge as possibilities, as opportunities to create something new, to offer something more effective, more meaningful to people. And we want to seek opportunity, but not strive for perfection. So these are some general principles of design thinking. And there's another great case study here, just briefly looking at Ikea. This is another place you could go and visit. Maybe you already have. You've been to an Ikea. It's now sort of a fixture, if you will, in American or in global kind of home shopping, home furnishing shopping. A wonderful firm, Ikea, Swedish company, went about trying to innovate on how people shop for home furniture and so forth. And what they found was that people spent a lot of time actually running through the actual warehouse. They were grabbing goods by themselves after coming through the showroom, and so they were actually following customers in a few different furniture stores. And they said, why don't we make that a business model where people can actually go into the warehouse, grab their own goods. People want to be able to kind of see the rooms as a showroom, and then combine that with the warehouse model. And what they did was they combined it into what we know as Ikea to create a really kind of interactive, fun, self-service, and by the way, very efficient business model where we don't have to have this whole separate warehouse team or structure or system. Rather, it's built into the showroom. And all the furniture and materials are designed to be flat packed, highly functional, pragmatic, yet cost effective. So Ikea really found a new niche, carved out a big space in home furnishings, one that wasn't really expensive furniture showrooms or really cheap, or at the very far end of very cheap kind of disposable things, somewhere kind of in the middle with a new way of shopping. And they did this through a lot of what we call iteration, trying, getting it right, and observation. So it wasn't just sort of perfectly designed from the get-go. It wasn't designed by some mastermind right out of the box, but rather it was about sticking with a problem over time, trying things, learning from experience, learning from customers. So I love this image of what people often think success looks like as this sort of straight arrow, sort of constant growth and improvement versus really the kind of messy process, calling back to that initial image from the slides in our lecture of what learning and what success really looks like here. And so just as a final slide here, I want to offer design thinking as a kind of adjunct or alternative to business thinking. So we have design thinking on the right and then sort of standard business thinking on the left. There's these underlying assumptions in both these groups. When we think about just design, you might think about an architect, a product designer, maybe an engineer or an artist. And in business, we might think about people who are generally trained and employed to run businesses. And a lot of times the assumptions in businesses are seeking rationality, predictability, objectivity. And in design, we're much more interested in that emotional experience, as we talked about with the Golden Gate Bridge. We're interested in what something feels like. We're interested in creating something, social construction versus reality. In business, we're often trained in the methods of analysis. You're trained to provide one best answer, do the perfect kind of brainiac analysis and offer the solution. Think about Wall Street, financial tech, and all sorts of other things. These are a lot of the lessons in data science and so forth. In design, we're interested more in the experimentation, aimed at iterating towards a better answer. No perfect answer, but we can keep working towards tinkering, trying things, even if they might cost some money, or finding a way to try things that don't cost a lot of money, and simply getting our hands dirty, and through that process we will learn. And this speaks to this next line. Business is about planning things very carefully, whereas design is just about starting to do, starting to create, starting to try, and that's where a lot of insight comes from. Decision drivers, logic, numeric models, whereas design, again, emotional insights, experiential, that is experiencing the product, like going into the warehouse, experiencing what it means to live in a house over water, what it means to be a part of a service or a product or experience a product. And in business, certainly the pursuit of control, right? Think about McDonald's, stability. Think about discomfort with uncertainty. Everything must taste the same, look the same, feel the same at all times. It must be perfectly controlled and so forth. And in design, we're interested in novelty, newness, a dislike of the status quo. We want to try new things, experience new things, present new things, and through that, we know we can foster innovation and meaning. And the level of focus, perhaps, is on the abstract or the particular, and yet design is really about this movement, this dialectic, or this dialogue between the abstract and the particular to get to insight and solve problems. And so this is just a brief introduction, according to Designing for Growth, what design thinking might look like. And thank you for joining the video, and we'll see you in the Moodle course.